Christoph Rose. I'm from the company Turck. I'm the product manager for cloud and software. So who is the company Turck? Maybe not everybody knows us. See if we can do that. So Turck is an automation company. So we've been around for quite a bit. I only started here 11 months ago, so I'm pretty new at the company, still getting to know everything. But well, 11 months, you do learn quite a lot. And at heart, Turck is an automation company coming from the sensor world. So basically, Turck in the past provided sensors, and then at some point somebody said, well, if you have the sensors, why don't you also provide the modules where we can plug in the sensors to get the readings? And then of course you need cables to connect those, and then it grew up from there, and so on and so forth, until then suddenly, as an automation company that originated as a sensor company, you don't do only sensors, but you provide basically the entire automation stack up to the PLCs, and nowadays, obviously, also cloud, edge computing, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's basically where I came in, taking over responsibility for the task for the cloud solution that we offer, and the most difficult part of the whole thing was actually not the cloud itself. The most difficult part is getting the data into a format so that you can actually push it to the cloud. And this is something where we utilize TINIT quite a lot. So I have to. So this is just the different levels from the IT and OT, and this is something which, if you come from the automation world, this is very normal. Everybody knows it. So we started on the device layer, then it added the connectivity layer, at some point the control layer, and now we start going into the IT world, where we do data analytics, cloud solution, remote software, remote service, and so on. We have a wide variety of customers, from very tiny machine manufacturers up until really huge companies, OEMs, who they can do everything. And so it's been very important for us in the past, and continuing to be important today, that we have open interfaces on each level. So depending on the use case, depending on the customer, we can't provide the entire stack, or maybe we do need to provide the entire stack. Maybe we can only support up to a certain level, or maybe they are using different sensors, but they want to use our connectivity layer or our control layer. And this is something that requires us to be very flexible in being able to offer solutions. And one thing I've run into in the past, and where I've worked previously, also in the cloud solutions, but also I've run into a lot here at Turck and with the customers we are working together, is that this is a slide I actually requested from Cumulosity, because I saw it and I said, yes, this is the exact one. So where is the current and the future market? Because nowadays, especially nowadays, everybody is talking about AI. And previously also, I mean, I started in this area 10 years ago. There it was ML, machine learning, would change everything, predictive maintenance, it will change everything. Everybody was talking about the disruptive business model. But my experience has been that a lot of companies are still down here. They're at the level where, they are starting to go into the actual IoT world with remote monitoring. Maybe they have a VPN service, because that's something that's relatively easy to buy and set up, and not a lot of know-how is required, because you just have a gateway, VPN, and that's it. And so for us, the big advantage, or our big goal, has always been to make it easy for our customers to use our solutions. And to do that in this area, in the IoT world, we created or are working on we call it the Turck Automation Suite TAS. So where we bundle, or our various solutions that we offer to our customers to use to use our automation products. So PLCs, our decentralized I/O modules, our sensors, and so on. One product that has been very, very successful is TAS Desktop. And TAS Desktop is just a desktop solution. And what does it enable to do? Well, it started with just being able to scan the network for devices. And which sounds very simple, but when you then find out that, well, depending where you are, you have hundreds of devices that are spread over an entire factory floor, it's extremely valuable to be able to just scan for the network, select the devices, and configure them. And so that's where we started. And going from there, we've expanded that now with TAS Cloud and TAS Edge. And there we are leveraging Thin Edge because there we are talking about gathering the data, preparing it for the cloud, and then connecting it to either our own cloud based on Cumulosity or other clouds from other solutions. And like I said, I'm responsible for TAS Cloud. And where do we use Thin Edge? We use it for device management. We started using it before I came to Turck. We've been using it for quite a while, actually, which for me is in the situation that actually for some of the things we've built by hand in the past and we've had to handle by hand on our own in the past because Thin Edge didn't offer a solution yet. Now there are standard components, or now these are standard components in Thin Edge. So depending on the devices we are on, we are still catching up to actually the current state of Thin Edge, but then in other solutions with newer devices, we can immediately leverage the new capabilities of Thin Edge. So like I said, we come from the automation world, and this is where the first focus for TAS Cloud has been. So what we do is we have our own PLCs. These can be either IP67 PLCs. These can be HMI, so also with the touch screen, and they are all running based on CodeAssist PLCs. And so there's a CodeAssist PLC running on it. This connects to anything. So this could be connecting via Modbus TCP, Modbus RTU, OPC can decentralize modules, IO link, analog, and so on. The entire world of automation is down here. And what we use is that we have in our TAS Cloud connector, we have the PLC agent, which then does all the gathering of the data, the configuration of how do we gathering the data and then pushing it via Thin Edge or into our cloud to Cumulosity. And that just makes our life a lot easier because I don't really have to look at the entire thing down here. We can focus on having our data connectivity to the outside world. We can focus on working on the cloud, and this basically just works and makes our life a lot easier. So here on the TAS Cloud connector with the PLCs, where are we using Thin Edge? We are doing it for using it for connection handling, certificate handling, doing all the configuration, uploading the configuration, sending data from the device to the cloud for diagnostics, all the data wrangling, which is required, and then also managing some workflows on the device. So doing updates, pushing data to the devices from the cloud, things like that. And so the entire so what does it look like then? So we have our Thin Edge with the PLC agent, the PLC handler, and then if you want to, you can even use symbol groups within the PLCs, just the way it's structured. And that's basically also the what we represent or reflect then in Cumulosity. And then we have these various configurations that you always need to send and check and update and do single device updates or bulk updates once you've configured everything and ensure that it has been working correctly. And the nice thing for me now is that I say, okay, I want to now use, we have this entire family of devices, which I showed here, so our PLC devices. But now we have different devices where we also want to connect them to the cloud. And there it's a lot easier for me because I can just go in and say, okay, we have, for example, our CCM device with Xeneos. And there we can just leverage the exact same stack. So we can just go in and say, okay, Xeneos, we can enables us to load just, this always when you present with a different software. Okay, now I should be on do not disturb. So I can just go in and say, okay, the we can also use ThinEdge here running in a Docker environment. Then we don't need to care about or don't need to implement newly again. How do we send the data to the cloud? And so here with this our CCM devices, it's a bit of a different platform, but it allows us again to connect to not using codices, but it can connect data again, Modbus TCP, Modbus RQ, but also Siemens, PLCs via wireless connectivity and so on. So there's a whole different world for different use cases. You can see it's a different platform basically that we are working on. And there we can just again use ThinEdge and using the same experience. We don't have to start over from scratch. And this will be interesting for me because this is a project we have running right now. And basically our goal is to have it running by the SPS, which is in 4 weeks. So a big fair. And we started last week. So this will be something where it will also be interesting just to see how fast is it actually possible to implement something like that. And then again, using the same approach, just changing who sends data to ThinEdge, we can go in and this is our TAS Edge solution. So basically the idea here is that you don't need a codesys PLC to gather all the data, but we have protocols where we can gather from our decentralized IO modules, which are available for basically any sensor out there. And again, we can go and do the same thing. The modules gather the data from the sensors, which they do anyway. Then via our protocol, we can gather all the data in one place, push it into ThinEdge, use the same certificate handling, connection handling, the data wrangling, and so on, and push it all into the cloud without having to do, without having to redo the entire stack of how do we build a connection, setting up the MQTT broker, the connection, and all of that kind of stuff. The other part that ThinEdge gave us, which is worth a lot, is using it for remote service. And here we actually have it's something where Cumulosity already has like a one-click VNC connection, one-click SSH connection via Cumulosity, via the cockpit, which makes my life a lot easier and our customers' life a lot easier because it's just a one-click thing in the cloud. They can press one button and they immediately have it. Where it's a bit more complicated, and this is then the thing where I'll be interested to see where ThinEdge is going, is utilizing the pass-through connections that are also available. So right now, the way that it's required to do is that you actually you need to use a local proxy server. So we can use the Cumulosity CLI to set that up. It requires us to use a bit of a special user setup because we have our own SSO running and that type of thing. So that works. It allows our customers, so we just had a case yesterday, to really go on the PLC as if it were at its workstation and adjust the PLC program from Germany going to Switzerland. And that's very useful, but right now it's a bit more complicated. And what has been requested a lot more, which I then found funny because a couple of weeks ago there was an article on in the tech community that said why we don't use why we don't use VPN connections because they enable too much. Is that, well, that's actually one of the bigger requests, is to have a one-click VPN connection set up. And so utilizing thin edge, being able to send configurations from Cumulosity via thin edge to the device, and having all of that handled to that, we actually do have a one-click VPN connection setup that we provide to our customers when they want to do things like the code assist programming on the device, or they want to use our TAS desktop suite to integrate with all of the devices or interact with the devices they have in the network. Yeah, that's everything from my side. And one thing I've learned is that it's very difficult to make something easy, and it's very complicated to make something simple. And that's a lot of time and effort has gone into trying to do it for our customers as simple as possible or as easy as possible. And from my side, it has been very nice to see that the development has been happening in ThinEdge just in the last year where I've been using it. And just before I'm done, I do want to shout out one more thing. It was quite funny. We weren't capable of, because we were using ThinEdge, and we never sent units to the cloud, to Cumulosity. And I went at some point to my developers. I went there and said, why aren't you sending units to the cloud? And then they said, well, ThinEdge can't do it. So then I think you guys fixed it within a week when I said, why aren't we capable of sending units to the cloud? A week later, it was done, and now I have to push my developers to actually implement it. They no longer have the excuse that it's not in ThinEdge. So thank you for that. Thank you for the really quick response time with things like that. Okay. Any questions? Yes, exactly, Stefan. That post. When I saw it, I was like, yeah. In the last 6 months, people have been pushing me. We need VPN. We need VPN. We need VPN. Please do VPN. So my only answer to that would actually be make the pass through better, easier to use, easier to set up, and then maybe I can convince people they don't need VPN. They can just use a good, well set up pass through.
I think there's an alternative. I think Aaron picked it up very well in this article. So if you want to have some more insights, then just go through that article and leave a comment or add your opinion if VPN is replacing or pass-through is replacing VPN.
Yeah.
Any other questions to Christoph? Christoph, thank you very much for the insights. Very interesting what you have achieved and how you're leveraging ThinEdge from my side. If you have a question, open the mic, please, and ask the question.